Hi everyone, this is Jackie from Project Piaba. So today we're going to do a little bit of a different kind of video than what we normally do. So normally we show you cool fish, or we tell you about how Project Piaba is a really cool organization that helps promote sustainable home aquarium fisheries. But today I wanted to talk a little bit about different ways that you can prepare your tank for any kind of issues that you might face. So there are a lot of aquarium emergency preparedness videos out there, and they're mostly focused on things like power outages and other types of emergencies that you can have with your tank, like filtration shutdowns, things like that. This is not that video. So what I wanted to talk about today is a situation that I worry about a lot. And that is, say something happens and you will not be around to take care of your tank for a couple of days or a couple of weeks. So say you have an extended period of time in the hospital, an extended sickness. That's something that a lot of people are worried about right now, and I am too. So you don't want to be in a situation where that's one more thing that you have to worry about, right? So in your life, you have all kinds of things that you have to plan for. When you have a tank, you have this whole extra layer of responsibility and things to think about. Also, a lot of people are out of work right now, and that's a really heartbreaking situation. That's a really difficult situation for those people, and they are getting to spend more time with their tanks. But a lot of people also, a lot of healthcare workers, a lot of people who are essential staff are the opposite of out of work right now and are doing like insane hours covering for people, and in a situation where they're worried about getting kind of like locked into work, right? So that's something that I think about all the time, is what would happen to my tanks if something happened and I wasn't able to come home from work. Like if I was, stuck on a shift and couldn't get home, and, couldn't get somebody to come in to cover me. And so what is my plan for my aquariums? And so that's definitely something that you want to be thinking about too, is suppose you can't come home. And then also you have like the fun things in life where, you've got your vacation and stuff like that. Generally you see those things coming a little bit further out, and you can, the planning for that is not quite as traumatic as, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to go home tonight. Somebody please take care of my fish at some point this week. So that being said, you do want to have a plan. Like, so who's gonna help you? I have a couple of trusted friends who have a key to my apartment, who generally know how my stuff works, who are fish savvy people, and I can call them and generally beg them to come over. So I have that plan in place, right? I have those people in my life. But you also want to be thinking about making things as easy as possible for them. You don't want to have, you don't want to be like, oh my gosh, can you please come take care of my fish? And then they get here and it's just a shit show, right? You don't want to do that to somebody. You want it to be easy and straightforward and something that they can generally deal with, because likely in that kind of situation, maybe they're also having a situation, right? So do they have what they need? Will they be able to find it? Will they be able to figure it out? So the thing that I started doing, and that I've had in place in my house for a couple of weeks now because I've been worried about this situation, is I have some little notes on my tanks, right? So here's what these things eat. Here's what the temperature is for this tank. I also have little thermometer things, little digital readouts that say what the temperature of the tank is, so they don't have to come over here and look for a thermometer. They can just go, oh look, that one's good, yay, right? And then it's easy for them. They don't have to think about it. They don't have to work on it too much. They can do what they need to do and then go home and take care of their own situation. And in terms of thinking about the feeding and stuff, right, I've got this little bin, and you can see that says all fish food in here, right? So that makes it a little bit easy, right? They don't have to look for it. They don't have to hunt for stuff. And so I've got extras of things too, because the worst thing you want to do is run out of your fish food at a time like this, right? You want to have all of your stuff together, right? So a generally fish savvy person can figure out from my notes what to feed these tanks, but also, and this was Tori's idea at Project Piaba, and she's a genius for this, but she's got like these little pill canisters, right? And so if you want to have an easy way to for somebody who's maybe not a fish person to be like, oh, I don't know, how much do you feed these fish? What's 10 algae discs? I don't know, right? And they can just kind of open it up and boop, dump it in for that particular day, right? I've got them labeled by the day and by the tank. So I've got a tank on the top and a tank on the bottom. I thought that that was a pretty straightforward way of labeling that. And again, always having extra stuff on hand, right? So if I'm here and a situation happens where I cannot leave my house, you know, the last thing that you want to do is run out of fish food when the state of Massachusetts is locked, is having a shelter in place issue, right? You don't want to have to be like, oh no, my fish are out of food. I've always got fish food, right? So I've got all of that extra stuff there. I've got extra stuff here, and I label that too, right? So say somebody comes over and is like, oh no, I just like accidentally dropped a whole bag of fish food all over the floor, right? There's more, and it's labeled where it is, so they don't have to rummage around through my stuff and look for stuff. I also have this cool stuff, this Rapashi, well, that's fruit fly media, this Soylent Green stuff, which is a gel mix that you can make, right? It's kind of it's really good for the fish. They love it. It's a wonderful product. I don't use it a lot because it is something that requires a little bit of extra time and care and planning and stuff. But that's always something that I have on hand, right? So I'm never totally out of fish food. Plus I have all of the stuff in the freezer, all of like the little frozen cubes of stuff that I can put in there, right? So they're never out of food. So that's one thing that you want to do. I mentioned the thermometer things, right? So that they don't have to really think about what your parameters are and if they're okay or not. Another thing that I learned is timers, right? So if you're not home, and like I work bizarre hours, right? So you've got like this little timer things. These are like $10 at Home Depot. They're great, and you can set them and have, you know, your fish's lives are normal even if yours is not, which is cool. But so I label all of those things too, like what, you know, I had a situation once where I had a heater malfunction, and the person that I had working on the tank couldn't figure out which plug was the heater, so they weren't able to unplug that, and then I had a problem with the temperature in the tank. So I have started labeling all of my electrical cords, right? This is the Eheim filter. This is the heat for the 30-gallon tank. And I have them sort of separated in ways that make sense. So I've got another plug strip in the back over here that has some other stuff, and it's all clearly labeled so that somebody can find, you know, a piece of equipment that's not working and replace it if they need to. And so that being said, I have a lot of extra things like that, right? I have an extra air pump. You can find it. Look, it's on the kitchen table. Wow, that's easy. And I have a bunch of other types of stuff like the, you know, the filter media and like, you know, the brushes and the things that you need to clean that stuff is all easy to find. So that's good. I also keep a dingy, nasty, dirty towel underneath the tank. So in case they have an issue or need to do a water change, God forbid, you don't want to do that to somebody, right? You know, come over and oh, guess what? There's going to be a lot of work, right? Not fun. So I keep that so that they at least don't have to like look through my towels and figure out which one is okay to get fish gunk on. Newsflash, it's all of them. But I have one ready to go, right? So that makes things easy for them. Let's see, what else did I want to talk about? Food, water conditioner, right? I leave that stuff right out too. So I have some behind the sink if they want to like fill up my little pitcher thing to add some water, a little bit of water to a tank. But I also always, you never want to run out of that either, along the same lines of the fish food, right? So I keep a big bottle of the stuff on hand. And again, that's real easy to find, just right next to the tank, so that hopefully no one will ever have to hunt around for that. So another thing that I wanted to touch on, also I got this cool thing that, so in the past, like I've had these battery powered air pumps that work great for emergencies like electrical problems, right? As long as you're home to turn them on, which I'm generally not. If the weather's bad, I'm usually at work, right? So I actually got one of these cool, and this was expensive for an air pump, but it has bailed me out a whole bunch of times, right? I've got this the Cobalt makes this particular one, but there's a lot of different brands that make things like this. So they're air pumps that you plug them into the wall, and when the power goes out, they sense that and they come on the battery backup, right? And that particular one came with like a little power bank thing that you can plug in and charge somewhere, and then so when that battery runs out, you've got another one in backup. So that's a pretty cool product. And actually I really like this one too, because it has two different settings where you can either have it when the power goes out run continuously, or it'll run for a little bit, shut off, run for a little bit, shut off. And the idea is that that prolongs its battery life, which is pretty cool. Really neat feature. So we've got that, extra things, any special circumstances that you might have that you want to think about. So for example, my roommate is a pigeon. This is probably not a situation that you have in your life, at least it's not very likely, but I have this going on in my life. Maybe you have a cat that does the same annoying thing, where any kind of cord like a temperature probe or airlines are things that your pigeon or your cat wants to get and will yank out of the tanks. So a couple of times he has tried to yank the hoses out and has succeeded in yanking the hoses out, and then I'm like, oh, why aren't my air stones working? And that would be a terrible reason to kill a tank full of fish in the event of a situation where you've got your battery backup air pump, but your idiot bird pulled the air hose out, right? That's a bad situation. That would really tick you off. So I have started fastening all of my things down with either Scotch tape or electrical tape to the rim of the tank. So see that? That's hard for a pigeon to pull out. I used to use clips, but he really liked the clips too, so that was a pain. So I try to just think about things like that are special situations, unique to your situation. And again, you want to try to keep things simple. So I also wanted to show you this cool water change trick that I have that has really helped me. And if you have someone coming over to take care of your fish for a prolonged period of time, like a month or so, or if, depending on if your tank is hugely overstocked with some catfish that you're babysitting for somebody that is maybe a little bit longer term situation than you planned on, but you have these fish and they're cool anyway, so you keep them, and then you have to do water changes a lot. Is I have this cool thing that I got. It hooks up to your sink. Maybe some of you have this. Really cool thing. It hooks up to the sink, and I did this ahead of time so you don't get to watch me fiddle with it with one hand. And then you put it in the tank, and the idea is then you can run the water directly into the tank, and it's got this cool little valve that you can shut when you want the water to go into the tank when you get it to the right temperature. And if you have the little temperature probe thing, you know that you're matching the temperature pretty well, and that's a good thing. And then you just put your water conditioner right into the tank, and then you're ready to go. But so I don't like to shut down all of the filters and the power heads and things like that when I'm doing my water changes. So generally what I do is I have this little siphon, and again, I set this up ahead of time so that I could show it to you without trying to fiddle with it with one hand while I'm filming. But so I stuff it into the back of my tank behind the background here where the intake is for my filter. That way that I don't suck any fish up, and I can just kind of leave it going. And I siphon my water right out the window and fill up the tank as I'm doing this. So pretty cool. And again, you want to keep things simple and easy if you want someone to help you out with this in the long term. So again, thinking about the planning, who's going to help you? Do they have the things that they're going to need in order to help you? Will they be able to find the things that they're going to need to help you? Are there enough things that they're not going to run out if this ends up being a longer term situation than you're anticipating? Will they be able to figure your stuff out? Is it simple enough? Or look behind your tank right now and tell me that you don't have a nest of wires and plugs and cords and things. Because I did, and it kind of bit me in the butt when I had that situation where the heater wouldn't stop. So make sure that your stuff is good, check that out, make sure you've got plenty of supplies, and then have backup supplies to your backup supplies, right? Maybe you've got some food that your fish don't love, right? Instead of getting rid of it, maybe save it and hold that in reserve for a situation like this. Who knows, maybe a pigeon would like to eat it too, because he does. And just have like the extra equipment ready, you know, for people to find, and you never know what you're gonna need. Keep it kind of clean, neat, organized, and easy for someone to figure out if you're not there. Or worst, this is a very stressful situation, right? If you're trying to talk somebody through something like that on the phone, like I used to have these really, these awesome filters that just wouldn't restart. When the power would click off for just like a second, they wouldn't restart. And trying to talk someone through priming a filter if they're not a fish person and they haven't done that and they don't know how it works can be really frustrating, right? So if you have a filter like that and you need a special tool to prime it, right? Like I used to have this little strip of coat hanger that was cut about like 6 inches, and I would just leave that right there with the filter, so I could be like, there's a little thing, you know, you just take the lid off and you poke the thing that spins with the pokey thing, right? And that worked, but it took us a while to get there. So again, things to think about if you have a tank. Be well, stay safe, and if you have any cool tips or tricks or things that you like to think about with your tanks for preparing for some kind of emergency like this, definitely hit us up in the comments. We'd love to hear your suggestions, your tips, your tricks. And do you have a pain in the butt animal that likes to mess with your aquariums like Rocky? Okay, thanks. Bye.